You've asked for more than most do. But because of your unwillingness so far to care about how you feel, you keep looking at what is. So you've asked over here, but you've stayed over here. It's like the analogy of the train. So life causes you to ask for this, but then you don't believe it. And so then you don't believe it, so you ask again, but you still don't believe it. These are engines that we're putting on opposite ends of your train. So then it's harder, so you ask again, but you still don't believe it. And so it's harder still, so you ask again, but you still don't believe it. And so the stakes just get higher and higher, and the tension just gets greater and greater, until after a while, you just get worn down with that, see? So if you could believe us when we tell you that you couldn't feel this bad if you hadn't asked for a lot. Some of you may not be aware of Jerry. Jerry, Esther's sweetheart, made his transition about 5 years ago. And for some time following, Esther was not feeling so good. A lot not feeling so good. And one day, and the thing that was so interesting, and maybe may seem odd to you that Esther didn't feel better more of the time, because Esther had been translating for Abraham all of these years. She could hear Jerry when she would get into that high-flying place. So quite often he'd say something to her that she'd hear really clearly, and then she'd notice that he wasn't in the room with her, and then she'd, in the absence of him, feel bad, and then she couldn't hear him. And so it was that sort of game that was going on. So one day, after feeling particularly bad for a while, Jerry said to Esther, you know, this is going to sound weird to you, but I think it's the only way that you're going to hear me right now, so I'm going to say it in this way. I can tell how much you love me by how bad you feel right now. Because if you didn't love me this much, you couldn't possibly feel that bad. In other words, he's gone, oh, now what? But that wasn't the way it was for Esther, because they were integrated in so many things. So don't let that analogy hurt your heart, because it's not hurting Esther's heart anymore at all. But the reason that we give you this analogy is because we want you to understand that when you really, really, really care about something, its absence really, really, really bothers you. If you have a small desire and it's not coming, you have a small negative emotion. But if you have a big desire and it's not coming, you have a big negative emotion. And so it's about that. It's about going for a while, because you see, you can't stop doing step one. You can't stop asking for more, and your inner being's not ever going to stop finding the more that you've asked for and reflecting it to you vibrationally. So you've got to start reaching for more thoughts that do feel good. And the reason that most people don't do it is because the momentum of those negative thoughts is just longer practiced. Do you know a belief is just a thought that you continue to think? So that's why we start with deeper beliefs within you. We say, you were before this body, and you say, oh, that sounds good. And then we say, and you still are, even though you're in this body. If we can get you to just focus on the basics of it, then you'll begin to feel better. So it's not a bad sign when you feel bad. It's a good sign when you feel bad, because it means you've asked for something that you can have.
Okay, so I understand.